Have you ever gotten so lost in a book or a movie or a game that the world itself felt, well, real? Like it was a character in its own right? That's not a mistake. It's the art and science of world building. And today, we're going to peel that onion back and see exactly how these incredible places get made. So let's just dive right in.
So what is the secret sauce? What makes a world feel truly alive? Is it, a giant sprawling map with every single coastline drawn out, or a 1,000-year timeline of kings and battles? We tend to think that more detail equals more real. But the truth is actually a little bit surprising. It's kind of counterintuitive.
The brilliant writer Umberto Eco, he pointed out something totally fascinating. He said, the key to a believable world isn't about total creative freedom, it's about constraints. It's about setting up the rules of the game right from the start and, this is the important part, sticking to them. We need to know that a prince's kiss can revive a princess, but maybe a witch's curse can't be broken by it. That consistency, that's what lets us just let go and believe.
And that brings us right to our first big idea here. World building is so much more than just drawing maps or writing up a backstory. At its very heart, it's about defining the rules of reality itself.
So here's a more formal way to put it. World building is all about creating a coherent world. And I absolutely love this phrase from the source material, contextual rule sets. You can think of it like the operating system for the entire story. It's the physics, the magic, the social structures. It's the fundamental logic that makes that world tick. This slide gives us a perfect way to see the difference between the world and the plot. Okay, so think back to 1998, when we suddenly got two movies about a giant asteroid coming to wipe us out. You had Deep Impact. That was a world-building story. The whole movie was about how would our society, our governments, our families react to this. The world and its rules were the focus. And then you had Armageddon. That was a plot story. It was, let's get a team of heroes to go blow up the rock. Same basic idea, totally different focus. One was about the world, the other was about the action.
Okay, so if the whole goal is to build this coherent system, how do creators actually do it? Well, it turns out there are two main ways to go about it. On the one hand, you've got what's called top-down design. You can see it here kind of like a funnel. This is the J.R.R. Tolkien method, right? You start with the entire universe, the gods, the continents, you invent whole languages, you write thousands of years of history, and then, finally, you zoom all the way into one little hobbit hole. But then, on the other hand, you have the bottom-up approach, which is more like building a pyramid. You start with one super-specific, vivid place, a desert cantina on a dusty planet, a single cyberpunk city street, and you build the world outwards from there, revealing more as the story goes on. But this is a great question, because a creator can build the most detailed, intricate world imaginable, but if it doesn't actually connect with the audience, what's the point? The thing is, different people come to these stories wanting very different things. First up, according to something called GNS theory, you've got the gamists. For a gamist, a story is basically a game, and the goal is to win. They love a good challenge, they want to master the mechanics, and figure out how to use their resources to come out on top. For them, the world is just the arena for the competition. The rules of the game are way more important than the rules of the world. Then you have the narrativists. These are the folks who are here for a great story. They get totally invested in the drama, the character arcs, the whole emotional journey. For a narrativist, the world is basically a stage. Its rules and history only really matter if they're creating compelling conflict or exploring a really powerful theme. And finally, you have the simulationists. These are the people who want to explore a world that feels real, a world that has this deep internal consistency. These are the people who will literally read every single lore book in a game like Skyrim just because they want to understand the history. For a simulationist, a coherent, well-built world isn't just a backdrop. It is the main attraction. And this gets to a really crucial point. When the rules of your world are inconsistent, you just shatter that precious immersion, especially for the simulationists. It leads to those classic arguments like, hey, wait a minute, why couldn't they just use a phoenix down on Eris? I mean, if you've established that bringing people back from the dead is a common, cheap thing you can buy in any shop, you can't just kill a main character for drama and expect us not to notice that the rules suddenly changed. It feels like you're cheating and it yanks us right out of the world. But when it's done right, a well-built world can do the exact opposite. It can pull you in even deeper. Sometimes with the smallest little details. To see what I mean, let's look at a really cool example from linguistics. Okay, so check this out. In the video game Chants of Sonar, you have this constructed language. This glyph right here, it means speech or to talk. Pretty simple, right?
And this second glyph, this little stylized stick figure, it means person. Again, totally straightforward.
But here's where it gets really, really interesting. What happens when you put them together? Speech plus person. Logically, you think that means speaker, right? Well, in this world, it means preacher. With one single combined word, the game's creators have told us something incredibly deep about this culture's values. The whole concept of a person who speaks in public is fundamentally tied to religion. Now that is just brilliant world building.
So, we've got these intricate rules, these really dedicated audiences, these clever little linguistic details. But does any of it actually matter in the long run? I mean, is this all just a really sophisticated form of escapism?
The answer is no, because fictional worlds are never, ever created in a vacuum. They are, as one of our sources puts it, an unavoidably political act.
And this brings us to the deepest layer of our onion, because every single imagined world is also a mirror, reflecting the hopes, the fears, and the politics of the very real world that created it.
And you can see this so clearly in these examples. Godzilla was never just a giant lizard, right? He was Japan's waking nightmare of nuclear war literally made flesh. Zombies have been used as a stand-in for just about everything. Our fear of consumerism, pandemics, political division, you name it. And this whole new genre of cli-fi, or climate fiction, it exists pretty much as a space for us to process our anxieties and even experiment with ideas for our future on a warming planet.
This quote from our source material really just says it all. You literally cannot build a world without making choices about power, about society, about values. And every single one of those choices is inherently political. The ideas and controversies from our world get embedded in the fictional ones we create, whether we mean for them to or not.
So, where does all this leave us? What's the big takeaway from this whole journey into how worlds get made? Here's the real bottom line. These imagined worlds matter. They aren't just entertainment. They become places for us to have social debates, to run thought experiments about our own future. They can reinforce harmful old stereotypes, or they can challenge us to think differently. They can limit our imagination, or they can expand it, showing us whole new ways to live.
And that brings us to the final, and maybe most critical question. The stories we watch and read and play, and the stories we tell, they don't just reflect our reality, they actively help shape it. So as you go back out into the world, the real one or the next fictional one you visit, ask yourself this. If the stories you engage with are laying the blueprints for the future, what kind of world are they building?